Are you serious? Are you serious, folks? What? Yes, we're back here in Indiana and looking over the studio that's being renovated right now. And new equipment has come in. Walls are in the process of being painted and renovation going on. Also, new furniture for the sets. There'll be 2 sets in this new studio. So a whole fresh, brand new look. I think you're going to love it. Anyway, so meanwhile, I'm going to work from my office this week as that continues to be renovated. But while I'm here, let me just say we have a prophecy alert. This just in from the Middle East. This is huge. And actually, I want to show you something. Hang on one second. Give me 1 second. This is incredible. This is incredible. I was telling you guys about this originally. I was telling you about this, but I want to show you. Unbelievable. This little unit, cool. You put it on. If you put it on your desk, it will literally warm up a room like you've never seen in your life. It will literally just do amazing to cool a room like you've never seen. Cool summer breeze. Amazing what it can do. Did I say warm up a room? No, I meant cool down a room. It's incredible what it does. Matter of fact, let me read this for you. It's just, I'm shocked. It's www.easysummercool.com. That's www.easysummercool.com. Just go to the website. You can get 50% off, free shipping. Just click on the website, www.easysummercool.com. And if this summer is anything like the last few summers, which they're predicting is going to even be hotter with this heat dome, then you're going to want to have one of these, especially if you have an office or, where you had it at your desk and you're working. What a great way to stay cool with easysummercool.com. It's best portable air conditioner available. There's no doubt about it. All right, let me tell you what's going on here, guys. Incredible info here, but let me just share with you. This just in. This is a prophecy alert. A prophecy alert. There's no doubt about that. We've got information now that I find very, very. Matter of fact, do you remember the deep state? Do you remember this webinar we did last fall? This webinar last fall, we talked about Deep State Uncovered. This was really good. It was Doug Hagman, part 1 and 2, General Jerry Boykin, Lisa Haven, Laura Eisenhower, she's the great granddaughter of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, Mike from around the world, L.A. Marzulli, Steve Quayle, and myself, along with a special DVD film made by Bart Begley called Obamagate. I want to be sure you guys know about these because we still have them available, and I'd like for you to get these. And we're going to really, really, really bless you. If you will do this, get those, because what I'm going to share with you here was already predicted to happen in the Deep State DVDs. Let me just share with you what's happening. So we know the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, it was a Blinken blood moon because he went there and he met with Benjamin Netanyahu, and then he went and met with President Abbas of the Palestinian Authority. But he said he was going to go to Gaza and meet with leaders of Hamas, but that changed, okay? Because it didn't happen. Anyway, I think what's coming out of that was a continuation of the Abraham Accords. Now, President Trump started the Abraham Accords with the peace agreement, if you will, a normalization between several nations in Israel. The United Arab Emirates was 1. Bahrain was 2. The Sudan was 3. And then later, King Mohammed VI of Morocco made 4. And also Kosovo and Serbia in Europe made 5 and 6. Israel already had a normal relationship with Jordan and Egypt. And those were signed. Egypt peace accord was signed back in 1979 with President Jimmy Carter. And the Jordan peace agreement with Israel was signed in 1994 by President Bill Clinton. And then Trump brings on the next 6 countries during the last 3 months of his presidency in 2020. But what I've done, I've been to Israel 10 times, guys. I have met with Avi Lipkin about 5 times. I traveled the whole country with Stephen Ben-Nun, where we've seen roadblock checkpoints already set up throughout the desert between from if you were up in Haifa to Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and on out. I went out and traveled with my my own personal driver that I used for last 5 years, and that's Rami. And Rami would take me out, and I went into Beshem. I went into parts of the West Bank. I went closer to Gaza and went into some of those cities there. And I can't just off the top of my head remember which ones they were. And I visited rabbis even, okay? Like Rabbi, oh, come on, Paul. Rabbi Ovadia, and he lives in one village over closer towards between Tel Aviv and Gaza. And then I visited another rabbi that I can't just think of his name because I just have problems with memory right now. But he's very well. He wrote the Ark Report. Okay, so why I can't think of his name at the top of my head, please forgive me. I know. But and also I met with other guys like I can't say Roddy Brown, who is very, very tuned in Jerusalem. So having said all that, I traveled around the country with Rami, especially in the West Bank and over near Gaza towns, because he is Islamic, and I could get into some places. And then I traveled with Stephen Ben-Nun prior to that, about 5 years ago, throughout places like Galilee area, up into the Golan Heights on the Syrian border. Also, we were over in Haifa and along the Mediterranean. But we also went through some of the countryside out in there where we seen checkpoints being built. Now, why am I bringing this all up? I'm bringing this up. Thank you. I should write my notes down before. A lot of times I just want to go ahead and I find an article. I know what it is. Forgive me. I will start writing things down in advance. I'm so sorry because of my memory issues. So I've said all this to say this, that I met with a guy in Israel named Mon-Th several times, and I've interviewed him and put him on television, just like I have Avi Lipkin, just like I have Harry Moskoff. That's that rabbi's name, Rabbi Harry Moskoff, just like I did Rabbi Ovadia, as well as Stephen Ben-Nun, as well as Roddy Brown. And I've interviewed these people, but Mon-Th, he's been there a long time. His parents are Holocaust survivors. And he saw these also. First of all, one of his closest friends was a secretary for Prime Minister Ariel Sharon. Ariel Sharon. And I covered Ariel Sharon while it was prime minister. They had a meeting in the year 2000. And it might have been even in the early year of 2001, but I think it was the year 2000, where they had a secret meeting one night. And when I say it's secret, it's because it was never released publicly. But the secretary that was there that night said that there was representatives from the Vatican, representatives from the Queen of England, from the British Empire. There were representatives from the European Union. There were representatives there from the United Nations. There were representatives there from the Arab League. There were representatives there from the United States. There were representatives there from all these collaborating groups, including the Palestinian Authority. All right. They were all at the table. And in this lengthy meeting, which they had been prepping quite a while before that, it was agreed that there would be a two-state solution, and that, but before they could sign the deal and make it public to the world, they would have to build the infrastructure to handle such a change. You can't just announce it and then try to go build it, because there are radicals that would do everything possible to prevent this from happening. And they're actually on both sides. There'd be radicals on the Muslim side that would say, no way, we want it all or none. Okay. Iran would be one of those for sure. And Hezbollah and Hamas and some of these others. And there's also very extreme group of among the Israelis who would say, absolutely not. And okay. Now, the Bible says not to part the land, and don't touch the apple of God's eye. And if you do, God will bring you into the valley of Jehoshaphat for judgment. You can find this in Zechariah 2. You can find this in Joel 3. And you can find this also in Zechariah 12 and Zechariah 14, where God really explains this, not to do this. But folks, according to Mon-Th, they signed a secret agreement. All of those entities signed off on it, that it was going to take place, but that they put together about a 25-year plan to prepare for it. And what they would do is they would build infrastructure checkpoints along the areas that would be part of this new divided, these two-state solution. And this is these, and also they'd be building a railroad. There's also going to be a super highway that goes from Gaza all the way to Ramallah, so that Muslims, Palestinians Arabs who live in Ramallah, West Bank, could go all the way to Gaza without crossing into Israeli territory and creating a potential conflict. There would be a super highway that went high and went down. And that was going to be built by the Chinese. In Gaza, Egypt is going to build a port. They're going to build a airport that would be over on the Egypt border of Gaza. So Egypt would build an airport that would allow the Islamic world or the Arab world. So if you lived in Ramallah and you wanted to leave the country, you could drive across the superhighway into Gaza, and you could get on a plane over there. And this would make it available for all the Palestinian people living in Gaza, that they could fly internationally through Egypt. Okay. Now, there would also be a seaport built, and that one would be built by the Saudi Arabians. And the Saudi Arabians were there because I said the Arab League, and it was not every nation, but a lot of them were there. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. I mean, these guys from Dubai, they were all there. And the Saudis would build the seaport, which allow all the shipping of food and materials and everything into Gaza. The Saudi Arabians also want to really rebuild the entire infrastructure of Gaza Strip. And they even now, with the new guy who's come on board since this was signed, Mohammed bin Salman, who is the Saudi crown prince, he wants to turn the Gaza Strip into almost a Vegas Strip. He wants to make this the hotbed of the Middle East, where people will want to come, and there will be casinos, and there will be all kinds of nightlife, and just sort of like Tel Aviv is in Israel, but to make this for the Islamic or for the Arab world, and that they could be there. And also it would create tons of jobs for the Palestinian people. Okay. So I'm just telling you the plan. I'm not for this plan, but I'm telling, because I'm not for parting the land at all. Okay. But I also know what Jesus said, that there would be Jews living in the West Bank, in Judea, which is the West Bank, and they would have to flee for their lives when the Antichrist takes control. When the abomination of desolation happens, then the Jews living in Judea will have to flee to Jordan, into Petra, to save their lives. And they can't even, they have to. And so basically, Jesus tells you in Matthew 24 that this is going to happen. Well, the only reason they would have to leave is because it isn't really part of, it's then become a new hybrid state, which would probably be this two-state solution. So they're going to do this. So I'm telling you all this to tell you that I see it in motion. I'm telling you that this all was agreed on. And I interviewed Avi Lipkin about this, and Samatov, and traveled all over Israel and all over the West Bank, and met with people all over, both Palestinians and Jews, Orthodox and Messianic, even Christian Palestinians and Arab that weren't Christian, and just to hear all the different perspectives of this. And this thing is in play. They're building the checkpoints. There's checkpoints in the middle of the wilderness. I mean, there's checkpoints in the middle of nowhere where there's don't need to be a checkpoint because it's all Israeli land. Why would this be a checkpoint when it's all Israel? Because they're setting it up for the parting of the land. And so let me just, and that's unfortunate. It really is, but this has been a 20 to 25 year plan. Now, Trump comes in on the scene, and he wants to just make peace for everybody. Everybody just get along and start making and start building the economies and working together. So 6 countries join in on this and have moved forward with this. We're also seeing the ones who don't want to, and that's really Iran, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan. None of them want to be a part of this. There's more radical Shiites on that side, and they don't want to work with the Sunnis on the other side. So they're being peeled away. They won't be a part. That's all or none for them. So they don't want to be a part of that. So having said that, here's what happened. Anthony Blinken is in the Middle East, and he has a conversation with Jordan and Egypt. And I believe this is the first time we're seeing this original agreement start to be worked on. Check this out. Anthony Blinken goes to the Middle East and begins the process of rebuilding Gaza. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken met with leaders of Egypt and Jordan, who are already in, to discuss rebuilding Gaza, largely avoiding talk of any long-term Israeli-Palestinian agreement. He doesn't want to talk about that yet. They can't talk about that yet until they start rebuilding. So a fragile ceasefire remains intact, but the work to rebuild after the short but deadly 11-day war between Israel and Hamas has just begun. The top American diplomat, Anthony Blinken, said that at the close of the Middle East trip, intended to keep simmering tensions from erupting anew. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said he was returning to Washington from the brief but urgent visit with new promises to help fund a massive humanitarian and reconstruction effort in the Gaza Strip, pockets of which were decimated during the 11-day war between Israel and Hamas. Hamas, the militant group that controls the Gaza Strip. Following the meetings with the leaders of Egypt and Jordan, 2 Arab neighbors of Israel that have influence with the Palestinians in Israel and in the occupied West Bank, and it's not occupied, but that's how they like to print it. Secretary of State Blinken said he would reach out to other nations in the region to ensure we all contribute to the recovery, the stability, and the reduction of tensions. So what's he saying? He's going to reach out to a lot of nations now to help fund the reconstruction, the rebuilding of Gaza. And that's exactly what the original agreement was back in 2000, 2001 under Ariel Sharon. That secret meeting is to get these other nations involved, which I've brought up to you. So right now Egypt and Jordan's in on the reconstruction building, which we knew that because Egypt was going to build the airport and create the passport system for the Palestinians. Oh, by the way, Jordan, what did they get out of this big deal? They get part of the land, a little sliver of the West Bank along the Jordan Valley, where there's some farms, Israeli farms there, and a little bit more. I've been down in that area. That's going to become part of Jordan. Jordan's going to get both sides of the bank of the Jordan River along that stretch of their border. They're going to get all that because that's the precious farmland where a lot of great vegetables and cabbages and all kinds of really good fruits and vegetables are grown. That's all going to be part of Jordan's. Why is Jordan going to get that? Because Jordan's going to make accessibility. They're going to make things more palatable for the Palestinians who live in the West Bank. If you live in the West Bank, you might want to just go into Jordan to visit and come back through a customs border system. And if you live in Gaza, you might just want to go on into Egypt and out through a customs system. Or if you're in the West Bank, you could just take the super highway that China will build, and then you can go to Gaza. Or if you're in Gaza, you can take the super highway into the Ramallah, where the rest of the Palestinians live. So Jordan gets, and also Jordan's going to get I don't know how many billions of dollars from Saudi Arabia. And the reason they're going to get that is because Jordan's going to give up part of their land to Saudi Arabia. It's a piece of land that Saudi Arabia has always said really belongs to them, and they want it. So Jordan's going to get free land. They're going to get part of Israel on both sides of the Jordan River along the border, which is precious farmland. And they're going to give away some of their land to Saudi Arabia. And they're going to make accessibility for the Palestinian people. And they're going to get a ton of money on top of that. What does Saudi Arabia get out of this? Saudi Arabia gets a big piece of land that they buy from Jordan, and they get to build a seaport along the Mediterranean out of Gaza that's accessible now to the world. And they get Saudi Arabia, and what does United Arab Emirates get out of this? The UAE, they get to be a part with Saudi Arabia to rebuild the Gaza Strip, and they get to make all the money off of all the restaurants, hotels, casinos, all the nightlife that's going to be put in there, turning that. What do the Palestinians get that live in Gaza? They get jobs. They get to live and work and start living a productive life. But there's one problem, and that is, of course, Hamas. They will have to eradicate them from that region and get Hamas to give up. Their plan is to get them to give up because they're going to make a two-state solution, and Hamas is going to get paid a ton of money. So what Blinken is doing, he's going out now. He's got Jordan and Egypt to agree to help reconstruct. He's going to use a ton of our tax dollars. Get ready, America. Dig deep into your pocket, because you're going to help pay for the parting of the land, whether we want to or not. Because what we're going to do, we're going to have to pay for the reconstruction of Gaza. And that's part of the two-state solution. And that's already been agreed on. So what are we going to do? Now, God said not to do it. God warned not to do it. God said he would come after the nations that get involved in this. And I'm telling you, it's not good, because they're parting the land, and they're going to do it forcibly. Israel's not agreeing to this, other than the fact that Ariel Sharon was involved in the original meetings. But the current leadership now under Benjamin Netanyahu is no. Benjamin Netanyahu does not want to part the land. And let me tell you something. Rabbi Yehuda Glick, who was a member of the Knesset, who's been shot 4 times by Palestinian assassins and survived, who was grabbed by Palestinian assassins and thrown off a 2-story building and beat half to death in the streets and survived, who's been arrested 5 times on the Temple Mount for praying, and was a member of the Knesset for 3 years. I was in his office at the Knesset filming him for television. And as I was talking to him, there were 20 nations that were in Paris, France, who were talking about a 2-state solution among European nations on this very plan that I just told you, which was already agreed on by the year 2000, 2001, according to Sagamore, who said his secretary was there and heard the entire conversation and helped type up the agreement. And she was a personal friend of Sagamore. So he's known this for 20 years, and he shared it with me on television about 5 years ago. Now, here's the deal. I'm in Rabbi Yehuda Glick's office, and I'm telling him what happened, and Glick is so angry. I said, what are you going to do? They're trying to part the land. What are you going to do? They're trying to forcibly bring forth a 2-state solution on you. And he slammed his desk. I mean, he slammed it. I won't have it, he said. No, there will never be a 2-state solution in Israel. Now, this is a man who's very calm and very easy. And he wasn't mad at me. He was just mad that I even brought it up, that it was actually being worked on. Okay, I'm like, whoa, look, I'm on your side. I'm just telling you, what do you know? What's going on? You know, what can you tell us? Later, of course, he announced this year he was going to run for president of Israel to replace the current president, Reuven Rivlin, whose 6-year term is up at the end of the summer. Glick was going to run. Glick did announce his candidacy. There were 4 men running for president of Israel. Glick was for a little bit in the lead in the polls, and Isaac Herzog was in second. But there's been a change. There was a shift against Netanyahu when he couldn't get his government formed. Even though Netanyahu is still the prime minister, 4 elections and he can't secure a government, they want him out. Well, Benjamin Netanyahu is a conservative, a friend of America, and certainly also grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the same city that Yehuda Glick grew up in. Yehuda Glick was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, before moving, both of them making Aliyah and moving to Israel. Now, Netanyahu's been in Israel a lot longer even than Glick. Glick's been there about 25 years, but Netanyahu's been there like 40 some years. Both these men are part of the Likud, or the Likud party, conservatives, and they don't want especially Glick, never wants the land parted, and he wants the third temple built. So what you have here, so all of a sudden Herzog begins to rise in the polls, and it looks like Lapid, Yari Lapid, is going to form a government, maybe. He still hasn't got it formed yet, with Naftali Bennett. If they do, then the liberal side of Israel takes over. That means Netanyahu's out. That means, and so if Netanyahu's out, Glick's out of the running for president. So Glick sees this already is happening, so he bows out. He backs out. He's withdraw his candidacy. And Isaac Herzog is going to become the next president of Israel. So and that's how things look at this moment. Also, Herzog is for parting the land. This is very interesting how this is coming about now. Trump is removed. Netanyahu's removed. Glick can't get the presidency, so he's got to take a step back and wait. He'll be back. And others are coming in. Blinken now is working on the reconstruction, getting other nations to get involved. And basically, it's a further, it's remember what the Bible says. See, this is where the confusion comes in, so I have to explain it. In the book of Daniel, the Bible says that there will be a covenant, that there's some type of an agreement signed, many nations, a covenant with many. But there comes one who confirms the covenant. And that is the Antichrist. Well, what we have here is a covenant that has begun under Jimmy Carter, 1979. Jimmy Carter puts the Israel-Egypt peace accord together in 79. Bill Clinton gets Jordan on board in 94. And then Donald Trump gets the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco, Serbia, and Kosovo. He gets 6 more nations to join, making a total of 8 nations that are now in this covenant with Israel. I suspect there'll be a few more that will jump in, like Saudi Arabia, and I suspect a few more, making this a covenant with many. But then somebody has to confirm this covenant. Who is that? And that's the question. And how long does it take us to get from here to there? Well, probably you're going to have to see the rebuilding, the reconstruction of Gaza, and they're going to try to force a 2-state solution on Israel. That's when they touch the apple of God's eye. And when that happens, it's a different game. God will not be pleased. Be wary of this. This might be why you see the Madrid fault line acting up and cracks over the bridge from Memphis into Arkansas. This Madrid fault line in 1811 was an 8.2 earthquake, followed by a bigger one in 1812. They believe it was around 8.4, and it rolled the Mississippi River backwards and reshaped the way the river flowed from then on. If that same earthquake happens again the one in 1812, if that hits again, it will do the same effect to the Mississippi, which would wipe out basically Memphis, Tennessee, and St. Louis, Missouri, and a lot of little towns along the way. Right in the middle of the heartland of America. Let's not mess with parting the land in Israel. This has been a prophecy alert. I'll be back with more events, more information. I'm not going to do a full-blown broadcast at noon. But instead, I'm going to continue to give you some updates throughout the day. And then I will do a full broadcast tonight, at 9:30 p.m. Eastern with Mike from around the world. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things happening. This all took place, guys, this war, and now this rebuilding, reconstruction. Where are we going? Was this part of the blinking blood moon? This is what I'm calling it. And I think that this is why this blood moon was so prophetic. It's going to get, wow. Things are really happening fast. Give your life to Jesus Christ, guys. We're running out of time. Don't forget, we do have Deep State DVDs available. I think some of you need to get these. Some of you may not have ever gotten yours. Plus, we have V. That's right. What a great webinar that was that we had. Both of those are available right now. You probably should get those. And it won't be long. If you haven't already, put your order in for Climate Chaos. It's coming in. It's shipped. It's on its way. So it's going to land here. And when it gets here, we're going to turn this thing around on a dime. I think it's shipped. I'm going to check with Bart one more time. Either he said it's shipped or they're packaging it. I know it was in production. Either way, it's coming soon, very soon. Get your order in now, okay? Get your order in now. If you haven't got your Deep State Uncovered, you should order that. If you haven't got your V DVD set, you should order that. Thank you, Tara. And if you want to get on the list, high on the list for Climate Chaos DVD that we just had, that whole set, you want to get that done right now. And there's the, so that you're on the list very high. Okay. God bless all of you. I love you guys. I'll be back later today. And don't forget Mike around the world tonight. Thank you all the moderators for jumping in here spontaneously. We'll be back, guys. We'll be back. Are you serious? Indiana, I'm back. Are you serious? Salvation Station.